do want to take a quick minute and say hello to Mr. Mark Purdy.
Hi, how are you?
Yeah. And Mark today is going to share a bit of info and speak to us about, bottom line, how do you keep your HST as an investor? Because there's probably a lot more than we're aware of, if you will. So he's got a bit of a background in the tax industry. But I am going to have Mark share a little bit with you folks today about HST rebates, and we'll also get to know a little bit about who Mark is. So for all of that, and that being said, I am going to kind of ask, of course, a burning question.
Okay.
All right. HST rebate.
Yes.
When did you first learn that you could actually get HST as an investor?
That's a very good question. So give you a little bit of background on me. I've been investing in real estate for about 20 years.
Okay.
I invested a lot 20 years ago, and then I had a child.
Okay.
And I didn't invest much for a long time because it was
Okay.
too time consuming.
Huh.
And I've done a lot of the different things. Back then they used to call it, buy a fixer-upper, fix it up, and then sell it.
That's right.
Yeah, we did that.
Yep.
We did multi-res, we did individual. And about, I'm going to say 7 years ago when my son got older, I started looking into new construction. And I got to say, I love new construction. Without question, the best thing I've ever done is new construction.
Okay, so new construction, I guess just for anybody that might not be aware, that's when you look at purchasing a home before it's even built. They might not even have the land, developed yet, but you have that opportunity. It may be 1 or 2 or 3 years before you move into the home, but you buy it new, so a new home if you will.
Yeah, you buy a new home. The first one I bought was about 7 years ago now.
Okay.
It was new construction. It was in Burlington. It was a rental property for me. I asked all the questions. I thought for sure I know all the questions of a tax guy. I've always known taxes, so I asked the question about HST because it was new at that time. And I said, do I have to pay HST? And they said, no, absolutely not. You're using it as an investment property. That's perfectly fine. And then about 12 hours before closing, I got a call from my lawyer, and my lawyer said, hey, you need to come to the table with $24,000 in HST. And, which is great. I always carry $24,000 in my pocket just for that sort of thing.
$24,000 liquid cash, folks.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, I asked the question afterwards. I said, that's great. How do I get it back? And, of course, the answer was you can't.
Oh.
And unfortunately, 8 years later, that's still what most people get told, is you can't get it back.
Okay, so just to recap, what I'm hearing you say is, what most of us understand, because I think I even fell into that trap. We go to buy a second property, and we want to make that property as an investment property, which means I want to rent it out. I rent it out, however, it's new. The property's new. So I get ready, we close, I put a tenant in there, I cannot get my HST back. That's what I always understood.
That's what most people understand even today. So, of course, continuing with the story, I called my realtor and I said, I don't understand this.
That would be natural that you would go to your realtor for that.
I called my builder and I said, I'm confused. Why didn't anybody say anything to me? That's, obviously your return on investments changed dramatically because you're out $24,000. And then I went to my wife and said, sorry, I'm really sorry, honey. I messed up. Then I called CRA.
So Canada Revenue Agency.
And I called the CRA and I asked them about it. And they said, well, of course you can.
Okay, this is really important, folks.
Okay. So they said,
Canada Revenue said you can get it back. That's
back.
the federal government said you can get that back.
You just have to apply. And I went, okay, how?
Okay.
So I went through and I applied. And in this case, I got my money back in 14 days. I got a check for $24,000, a couple bucks in interest. I went and bought myself a coffee, and I went, I don't understand this. So then I went back to the same people, and I said, Mr. Lawyer, why do I have a check for $24,000? You can't. And I went to everybody, and they all told me I couldn't.
So even the lawyer said that doesn't make sense. You cannot.
Doesn't make sense.
Okay.
Right. And now, once I got into that a little bit more, I started to ask the question, well, why is this? Well, the first thing with the lawyers, of course, is most lawyers are real estate lawyers. They're not tax lawyers.
So
they're focused on real estate.
And that makes sense in law, folks. You have everything from your criminal law to your marital law, to your family law, to your realtor law. And I've said, you're in the industry, in real estate, it's a legal-based industry. That's why you have to go to college now to get your accreditation.
Yep. And then I went to my realtor, and of course, the realtor, he's just a sales guy. And we all have to understand that most realtors are salespeople first. Not all of them are good. Just like all realtors can sell you investment properties, but you really want to focus on a realtor who invests first
Yeah,
and then is a realtor.
yeah,
right?
which
And you
is
have-
kind of a.
Right, and that's a difference. So when I talked to a realtor, he didn't understand, I explained it to him. And then I went out to the market and I looked at the market and I went, geez, there's a lot of new construction. At the time in Toronto, there was something like 140,000 new construction properties built that year.
140,000, so 140,000 for anybody, hi Gordon, for anybody that wants to get a little in. So 140,000 is almost like the town of Oakville,
Yes.
if you will. So let's go build a new town of all new construction and, all
So
right.
So that's what we were talking about. And when I went into it, I realized, and this was according to CRA, close to $3 billion is collected every year. This was 8 years ago as a result of new construction HST.
Okay.
$3 billion with a B.
So what I'm hearing is, about 8 years ago, the Canada Revenue Agency, how much they collected from investor clients, whatever, HST was $3 billion. That was about
Yes.
8 years ago in HST. So that was kind of what was it collected, or that was just what they were to collect?
That's what they collected.
That is what they collected,
here's the rub.
received. Okay.
All $3 billion was rebatable.
Oh,
We could
ain't
have
that a
gotten it
folk?
all back. So just imagine, there's $3 billion floating out there that you can have.
Mm-hmm.
You just have to ask for it.
Knowledge, hey, I'm all about, if you don't ask, you don't get. So therefore, we ask. So thank you.
So 8 years later, I do seminars every week. I probably do 4 to 5 seminars a month at real estate offices, at lawyers' offices. 8 years later, still 90% of the money that's being collected is not being asked for back.
So I guess what's really resonating, a lot of people will ask, Michelle, what drives you? Where's your passion? You know where my real passion is? Yes, I want to inspire people to believe in themselves. Yes, I'm a realtor, we run a practice. It's really about, we have it within ourselves to even make money, save money, keep money. So to our investor clients, and that's a large percentage of who we work with, look at the kind of information that we can give to them that they may not have ever been aware of. God bless, we met. And look at, like, can you imagine somebody possibly collecting, now, this, I'm being hypothetical, run a scenario, but, they just bought, let's say, 2 investment properties, they weren't aware, and turned around, now we're able to help put, I'm going to guess, let's say we can put 30, 40,000 back in their pocket because the government has it, they're entitled to it, and all we have to do is assist showing them the way that they do it, the forms, but it's a legal vehicle, and they are entitled to that money back.
Yes.
Is that what I'm...
And that's the issue. So, we're looking 8 years later. HST's been around for a long time. Still nobody seems to
I
understand the
remember
program.
when they...
Yeah, it was
that was right.
2009,
Yeah.
right? Still nobody understands the program. Still investors don't understand. Everybody's getting caught at the end of the day. Their statement of adjustment says they're not eligible for the HST, so
Correct.
no one thinks to ask for it. But the
Correct.
reality is, here it is. Everybody who buys new construction is entitled to the HST they pay back.
Yes.
100% of everybody who buys, so that currently is about $4 billion being collected in Ontario. We're entitled to ask for that back.
4 billion.
Okay? If we don't ask for it back, after 2 years, Revenue Canada gets to keep it.
So they got basically a 2-year window, is
2-year
what I'm
window.
hearing.
2-year window.
Okay.
I had a guy in my office just last week, came in, he bought 3 properties, a total of $72,000 he'd paid in HST,
Oh.
and every single one was stale dated. We could no longer go for that money. $72,000. Think of what you could do with $72,000 tax-free money.
Well, we started with 23,000 and we made 300,000, so.
It's a huge deal, right?
It's huge.
He just lost $72,000 because he never asked the right questions and he didn't have the right people to ask. But the reality is everybody who bought new construction, you have to do one thing. In order to get your money back, you have to lease the unit out for 12 months or longer, which is what we're doing with them anyways.
That's exactly.
Right? And then you have to ask for the money.
Okay.
So a whole bunch of us are leasing them, but no one's
We're not
asking for the money.
for it, no. Because most of us, as you said, Mark, and this is the reason we're not acting, but most of us right now, we don't think we can get it back, so how do you ask what you don't know?
Yeah, and this applies to everybody. This applies to individuals, this applies to partnerships, this applies to non-for-profits,
So-
corporation. It applies for international investors. Just give you a head.
Oh.
Give you a heads up.
You're, okay, I'm really
So,
excited because we have one we're working with.
Just so you know, last year there were 4 international investors in all of Ontario. Now you probably thought there was a lot more, but only 4 people applied for the HST back. Every single international investor, what are they doing with those properties?
Wow.
They're renting them out. All they have to do is say, can I have that $27,000 back? Can I have that $18,000 back? They want the money. They don't know, and no one's telling them. And Revenue Canada will send a check directly to them.
Well, you know what, I'm
Stymied.
timing, and again, it's information, you know, it's what we do with that information.
Yes.
So, it's what we do with that information. So that's, I'm super excited. I'm also really, really happy that, Mark, if we wanted to have you come back
Yes.
and share more with our community.
The coffee. I told you about, if I don't get coffee,
Well,
I
we
don't
have to
come.
bring and what is, okay, and, well, we'll have to figure, and your favorite coffee is?
Just coffee with milk.
Coffee
I'm
with milk.
cool.
It doesn't matter where it comes from?
I'm easygoing.
So it doesn't have to be the Starbucks?
No, we're not brand sensitive here. We just
Good.
want coffee
All right.
with milk.
Okay, we'll make sure, coffee, large cup, milk, and we'll get an absolute mug from Mark that'll have his name on it, and it'll have, well, I may even do a little contest as to what we'll put on there after, so.
And next time maybe we can talk about rental guarantees. We can
Rental
talk about
guarantees?
rental guarantees.
Rental guarantees,
We could
folks.
talk about rent increases, rent control.
Didn't rent control and rent increases, and I know we've got,
They've changed dramatically.
okay,
Dramatically.
so there's more that we can share on that.
Huge on that. We can talk about the first-time buyer program and how that works and what people are
Yeah.
missing on that. But the other big one that's happening right now is delayed closings. Huge, huge.
Yes,
Just in this part, just if we were talking Burlington to Kitchener-Waterloo,
okay.
there's probably $45 million in eligible claims that no one's asking for.
Okay, so on a
Tax-free money.
delayed closing, eligible claims, about 45
Just between here and
here in
Kitchener-Waterloo.
Kitchener.
In Toronto, there's probably $140 million worth of claims available.
And what did you say, 140 between
Between
here and
Kitchener,
Kitchener?
40 million.
140 million, 140 million. in
Free money.
claims, free money. Again, information is power, guys, but again, the right information to the right individuals is power.
Yes.
All right. So I have another burning question.
No
if
problem.
that's
Ask me the
okay.
question.
So first and foremost, I want to thank everybody and just keep following us because I'm bringing Mark back really soon because I think I have quite a
She
few
has
people.
coffee.
Well, I have coffee. Well, I am good. I'm really, really good, except I like my coffee.
Yes.
So I'm not giving. Don't give up coffee. My other burning question is more in a line to, if I'm correct, you're in the Burlington area?
Yes.
All right. And what do you do for fun?
I
You've
don't
been in
have-
Burlington?
I don't have fun. I actually grew up in Hamilton.
Okay.
My son's gone off to university now, so he's been off to university for 4 years. So all of a sudden, I have more time than I ever imagined.
Oh
I had
my
before.
gosh, we earned the dues.
So
yeah.
I am starting to expand my life a little bit. I do different things. I do pottery.
Okay.
I just travel. I was just in Iceland.
Were you in Iceland?
Oh, what a wonderful
How long ago
experience.
were you in
I
Iceland?
was there 2 weeks ago.
My daughter went to Iceland. She went to Waterloo, and she did a 5-day trip to Iceland, paid for it on her own, but she
Yep.
ate peanut butter because she's in school. She can't
Yep.
afford the meals, but she went to Iceland.
My son went to goes to Waterloo as well, and he
Oh,
was in
okay.
Iceland with me. We
Nice.
did a walking trail. We walked approximately 140 kilometers in 5 days.
140 kilometers in 5 days?
Mostly up.
Okay. Hi, Gordon. 140 kilometers in 5 days. Gordon, we have to go to Iceland.
You know what? It was a beautiful experience. A whole different world. We went from complete lava
Okay.
into ice belts, into horizontal rain, into deserts, and then all of a sudden we were in a rainforest.
And then in a rainforest.
I've never seen anything like it. We just walked from one environment to another. It was an unbelievable experience. Beautiful country.
I'm interested. I've never been. I've never really kind of paid. I mean, there's different countries and so forth, but to go to Iceland, and I know the few stories that my daughter had shared, but not ever heard of 104. That kind of a walk in that period of a time.
Yeah. It wasn't that bad actually. Yeah, it wasn't that bad.
All right.
They actually run it.
They run it.
They run it. They have an ultra marathon where they run up and down these hills. It's 55 miles in duration. This ultra marathon, up and down hills
Wow.
and through river crossings and stuff like that. But I think the fastest time is 4.5 hours. It took us 4 days.
You know what? It's not about, it's about getting there.
That's right.
I think that's really,
It was about seeing
it's
what you
about
saw.
getting there and seeing what you saw. So as I said, the turtle sometimes is the one that wins most races.
Yep.
Yep, stay the course.
In the meantime, if anybody has questions, they can certainly contact me through you, and I can
Wonderful.
answer all their questions as we go along.
All righty,
Until
so
we meet again.
for everybody, what I will do is I'm actually going to share Mark's info on our page. And for anybody that kind of wants to know, it's Mark Purdy. If anybody wanted to find you on
I'm at Tim Hortons right now.
Tim
with
Hortons,
coffee.
yeah. You know what, I would almost say follow us, because we're going to have Mark back.
Yes.
And I think eventually, if it's possible, I'd love to have Mark back at least once a week.
Yeah, if you Google Mark Purdy,
Mark Purdy.
Mark Purdy,
Yep.
HST, there's probably 5-6 podcasts on me alone.
Awesome.
Everybody who wants to know something about HST seems to call me.
Beautiful. I mean, I would think every realtor in the sun should be looking at this, but as you say, I mean, all I know is I see value
You're
in this
also
and I want to
inundated
share
in
it.
knowledge, and you know, as a realtor, as anybody, you're given this information, but unless you have a need for it today,
Yeah.
it just goes in the back.
Well, it's like
right?
training, right? You
Yeah.
know, you don't use it, you lose it, sort
Yeah.
of thing.
And that's
So-
what ends up happening. And the realtors that are focused on new construction, or folks focused on investors like yourself,
Yep.
they tend to be more aware of it.
Yep.
And they're always reaching out and saying, oh, okay, let me explain that one to me a little bit more, explain that one to, and that's how I know who I'm dealing with.
Beautiful.
Like I say, I would probably meet with 40, 50 realtors in a week. Out of those 40 or 50 realtors, I might talk to one who they've actually got, you know, real comments and questions about what we're doing.
Commonalities
Yeah.
and then the, okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, on that, I just want to thank you
You're
for
welcome.
being here. And we absolutely are going to have Mark back next week. Stay tuned for me. I'll let everybody know well in advance when we're going to be bringing him back for another Facebook Live. And bottom line, it's to share more knowledge. We also want to know the next trip that Mark's going to take. And
So do I.
yeah. And you know what? With that all being said, have an amazing balance of your day. And thank you very much, Mark,
You're
for being
welcome.
with
Thank
us.
you very much for having me.
All right. Bye,
Bye-bye.
everyone.